Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Mark's Action Figures. Today, we're going to be diving into what makes collectors still consider the golden age of comic accurate DC collectibles phenomenal. And that is the legendary DC Direct Superman figures. Before the ultra articulation, before soft goods capes, before giant collector lines from McFarlane, DC Direct was giving fans figures that looked like they literally stepped right out of the comic pages. Today we're looking at 5 incredible Superman releases spanning alternate realities, classic Golden Age appearances, futuristic Kryptonian storytelling, and even Superman taking on the mantle of Nightwing. We've got Clark Kent, Superman Unmasked, 2006. We've got Superman as Nightwing from 2010, Superman Red Sun, 2005, Superman from Action Comics #1, 2004, and Superman New Krypton Superman 2010. Trust me, these figures still hold up today. Before we jump in to these figures themselves, we've got to talk about DC Direct. Back in the late 1990s and 2000s, DC Direct became the company for more comic accurate collector figures. Unlike mass retail toys, these were designed specifically for comic fans and collectors. And what made them so special was the sculpting. These figures weren't trying to be generic. They were based directly on comic artists' interpretations. Alex Ross, Jim Lee, Darwin Cook, Ed McGuinness, and many others. The articulation was limited compared to modern figures, but the sculpt quality and paint applications were phenomenal for the era. A lot of collectors today still say DC Direct captured the look of Superman better than any modern lines. I kind of agree with that, but I am an avid collector of McFarlane DC Multiverse, and those are absolutely phenomenal figures. I mean, no shade on McFarlane, and I will be doing some reviews. I basically own every single one of those Superman that McFarlane produced, so no shade on McFarlane, but I don't know if there would have been a McFarlane DC Multiverse if it weren't for DC Direct as a basic inspirational canvas. We're going to start with Superman from Action Comics #1. This guy was produced in 2004. This is where it all began. This figure is based on Action Comics #1 from 1938. The first appearance of Superman and arguably the birth of the superhero genre itself. The broken car panel on the cover immediately connects this figure to the arguably and most important comic book cover ever created. In 1938, seeing a man casually lift a car over his head was revolutionary imagery. That single image essentially created the superhero genre as we know it today. The cover was illustrated by Joe Shuster himself. The car itself became one of the most recognizable symbols in comic book history. Early Superman was portrayed as raw and physical, less polished, and more aggressive than later interpretations. That imagery influenced decades of Superman merchandise, statues, and action figures afterward. Back then, Superman was very different from the version that we know and love today. He leaped huge distances, tall buildings to be more precise. He was rougher, tougher, and more aggressive. The early costume design is iconic. The shorter cape, simpler emblem, yellow belt, and that classic Golden Age physique. Now, the figure itself absolutely nails that Golden Age comic aesthetic. The proportions are slimmer compared to modern Superman figures, but that works in its favor because it reflects Joe Shuster's original artwork perfectly. And the head sculpt, still one of the best classic Superman portraits DC Direct ever made. The paint applications are clean, the colors pop beautifully, and the figure has that old school heroic presence that screams 1930s pulp comics. You're not getting crazy dynamic poses here, but really DC Direct figures were more like miniature comic statues with just enough articulation to adjust the pose. And this figure absolutely succeeds as a display piece. Now, as with every single DC Direct figure, and I have iterated this many times, the articulation is exceedingly fragile. Do not overpose these. The plastics within the joint connections are very friable, and they do not hold up well to wear and tear. They are brittle and they crack, unfortunately. Moving on to our next figure, we have Superman Unmasked from 2006. This one might actually be the most unique figure in this lineup. This is the classic dual identity Superman concept, mild-mannered reporter on the outside and Man of Steel underneath. This figure captures the entire essence of Superman better than almost any fully costumed figure. Get a load of this. There's an accessory here that you could just pull away to reveal, wow, Superman's iconic S-Shield emblem. He's just starting to get that suit off, getting ready to save the world. Because Superman isn't just about powers, it's about identity. The contrast between Clark Kent and Superman has been central to the mythology since 1938. The suit design here is excellent. Clean business attire. Oversized glasses, classic red tie, and then that partially revealed Superman emblem underneath. It feels like a scene frozen directly from the comics. The facial sculpt also has a very classic square jaw Superman look that DC Direct became famous for. Now, I don't believe the original figure in its packaging had glasses that came as an accessory. But regardless, I think it still looks phenomenal. And one thing I really love is that subtle transformation aspect. It's not an exaggerated shirt rip pose. It's restrained and classy, very much in line with Christopher Reeve's interpretation of Clark Kent and Superman. This figure feels more mature and elegant than flashy. It's probably one of the most underrated Superman figures DC Direct ever released. Now moving on to Red Sun Superman 2005. Okay, now we get into Elseworlds territory. And this figure is legendary. Superman Red Sun asked one simple but brilliant question. What if Superman landed in a Soviet Union instead of Kansas as a baby? The series was written by Mark Miller and became one of the DC's most acclaimed Elseworlds storylines. This Superman isn't fighting for truth, justice, and the American way. Instead, he becomes a symbol of Soviet power during the Cold War. And visually, this figure is stunning. The Soviet-inspired chest emblem is beautifully sculpted, and the massive flag accessory, absolutely iconic. Collectors still talk about this figure today because DC Direct absolutely nailed the costume accuracy. The cape sculpt flows beautifully, and the overall stance makes Superman feel authoritarian, powerful, and intimidating. This isn't your hopeful farm boy Superman. It remains one of the coolest alternate universe Superman designs ever created. Oh, Red Sun Superman, where are you now? We certainly could use you to topple the evil, dictatorial state actor in today's Russia and have you change your costume from red and gray to blue and yellow. Slava Ukraine. Moving on to the next figure, Superman as Nightwing. Now, this is a deep cut Superman lore. A lot of casual fans don't even know Superman was ever Nightwing. Long before Dick Grayson became Nightwing permanently, Superman and Jimmy Olsen actually used the identities of Nightwing and Flamebird in the bottled city of Kandor. And later, Superman adopted the Nightwing identity again during certain storylines. This figure has a much darker aesthetic than the traditional Superman figures. He has the dark gray teal suit, darker tones, more tactical look, and a completely different vibe overall. It almost feels like Superman stepping into Batman territory visually. The sculpt work here is fantastic. Very sharp lines, angular details, and a more modern comic book style compared to the softer, classic Superman figures earlier in the lineup. And because this released in 2010, you can really see DC Direct evolving its engineering and sculpting techniques. This figure feels more dynamic and modern while still maintaining that comic accurate DC Direct charm. For longtime Superman fans, this one is one of those hidden gem releases that stands out immediately on a shelf. And finally, we're going to take a look at Superman New Krypton. Now we move into one of the biggest Superman storylines of the late 2000s, Superman New Krypton. This storyline completely changed Superman's world. After the city of Kandor was restored and transformed into a new Kryptonian planet, Superman suddenly found himself surrounded by thousands of Kryptonians, essentially no longer being the last son of Krypton. And this figure reflects that more militaristic Kryptonian era perfectly. The suit design feels sharper, more military, and more science fiction inspired than traditional Superman looks. The black and gray tones are more intimidating. The S shield symbol of hope is less visible. And the overall presentation feels very modern bronze to modern age DC Comics. This was also around the period where Superman comics became much more cosmic and politically layered. This figure captures that era beautifully. The sculpt has excellent texture work, clean paint applications, and a very commanding shelf presence. The head sculpt is nothing less than phenomenal. Looking at these together really reminds me why collectors still love DC Direct. These weren't just toys. They were comic art brought into 3 dimensions. Every figure represented a different era, artist, or interpretation of Superman. Golden Age hero, secret identity, reporter, Soviet superpower, Kryptonian vigilante, and futuristic alien leader. And even today, nearly 20 years later, these figures still look fantastic on display. Sure, modern figures may have better articulation, are less likely to break when you pose them. Shout out and congratulations to McFarlane for having given us more higher quality in terms of engineering and plastics. But DC Direct had soul. They captured the feeling of comic books better than almost anybody. And for Superman collectors, these are still essential pieces. So let me know down in the comments, which of these DC Direct Superman figures is your favorite? Are you a fan of the classic Golden Age Superman? Or do you prefer alternate universe versions like Red Sun or Nightwing? And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell because we've got a lot more DC and Marvel figure content coming soon. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I will see you in the next review.